G'day Beaks and Beaks to Bee. Are you curious about learning more about beekeeping? I have been a beekeeper for over 55 years and rearing queen bees since the 1980s.
When I met Alan through my local beekeeping club, I knew nothing about bees. Is to take the second or third frame out first and not the outside frame. A lot of the time you'll have a lot of burr comb on the outside wall, which if you drag this frame out first, you've got a 1 in 10 chance that your queen is on there and you'll kill her. So the first thing we do is use your hive tool in an overhand position and we spread the frames and break any of that bridging comb. Once you're confident that you've given yourself enough room, you hook one end up, place a finger under, hook the other end up, and it just rests there. And then when you lift, you must not feel any resistance. Feeling weight is okay, probably means that it's got some honey in it, but feeling weight is different to feeling resistance. If you feel it dragging at all, you place it back in and start again. So on the outside here we've got brood frame carriers, which is what we'll use to arrange our brood. If any brood frames I want to keep in our brood super, I place on the carrier closest to me. Any brood that I want to lift, it may be honey, pollen or sealed brood if I'm building up bee numbers, I'll place on the brood frame carrier furthest from me. So first things first, I'm using the sunlight to get to the bottom of the cell and I'm going to assess, first of all, if we've got eggs and a queen. I'm going to look at bee numbers, how much brood we've got, how much sealed brood. I'll check these play cells, and if they're just play cells I'll destroy them, but if they're queen cells it'll mean something else altogether, which will change my plan of attack. But that's just a play cell, so I've just destroyed it. So in this first frame here, I'm analysing, looking in the sun, and I'm seeing spots of sealed brood, but she's certainly not working this side of the hive. So there's quite a lot of empty cells there, so I'm going to place it on this side for the moment. Next I'm going to check the outside frame. Give yourself some room. As I pull this up, same thing. I can see plenty of bees, which is good, it proves that our amalgamation was successful. However, I'm still looking for eggs to make sure that my queen that I added in last week has made it for 7 days. She was in full lay when she went in, so I haven't found any just yet, although of course you've got sealed brood, but all these cells are polished and ready for her to lay in. She's not up to it yet. So perhaps I'll find eggs closer to the middle or further on the other side. But a lot of mature drones as well. Okay, third frame in. It's starting to look a bit better, and especially when you see the queen yourself.
There's the queen.
That's when you know that you've got a lot, you know that she's fine. So one of our safe handling techniques for working with bees is that when we see the queen, we simply cage her immediately. So here's our queen cage, hook, nails and a hair curler, and I can simply, if you're confident enough not to squash her, you can grab her and place her in the queen cage, hold it up because she likes to crawl up, and then boom, she's sealed. And you place this on the landing board. If it's a 35-degree day, be careful not to leave her in the sun there for too long. However, she's safe there because she can be fed through the cage, and she'll be quite happy when you return her. It's good too, this frame has all been laid up and it's all sealed brood, and I can tell it's quite fresh comb. This was only a partly draw frame from last week, and I'm definitely going to keep that downstairs because I've still got more work to do on it. So I'll place it over here. That's 3 frames over here, now I'm on to my 4th. You can see I'm not using much smoke. That can depend on the time of day, but most of all, and the mood of your bees, but most of all it's about the genetics. So a quiet bee shouldn't need much smoke, and they're a pleasure to work. If you've got to be constantly smoking your bees, it might be time to look at changing your queen. Once again, I'm looking into the sunlight there. You can see I'm seeing plenty of bees, and I can see eggs laid throughout, which means that she's gotten right off to a good start towards the middle of this. If you want to have a really close look, now that we've found the queen, place your frame inside. If you've got room, you can put it on the angle a touch, but usually this is enough, and you give it a quick shake. And that'll clear the bees off, enough time for you to have a quick look, and make sure that any of this sealed brood here, I saw this little hole here, and you can see there's actually a bee hatching out of it, which is a good sign. If that was instead something else, it could either be chalk brood or American foul brood disease or any other any other problem, but in this case, this is the last of the hatching bees. And same here. An example of a frame that's no good in the brood chamber is one with a bow in it. Now when I say a bow, I'm not talking about a bow in the cappings, I'm talking about a bow in the foundation. You see how this foundation is quite deep here? And then here, it's quite shallow, which means on this side, you've got an indent. That renders those cells pretty much useless to the queen, and in effect, you're reducing your holding capacity of eggs for that queen to lay. So your population isn't as high as it could be. You can correct that in certain combs, and they can repair it, but a lot of the times when they're getting on an age like this, the best thing is to do is to remove it to the honey super. So that one goes in the farther side because I'm going to remove it. And then I simply repeat the process. If I'm ever in doubt about a cell, I'll shake the bees off and have a closer look and check the rest of the frames. Okay, another hot tip. If you're still looking for your queen and you're going through frame by frame, another excellent idea is as you pull this frame out and you secure that in your hands, to cast your eyes over the next frame. That way you're essentially looking at 1.5 frames at a time. And if you've missed her on the frame you've got in your hand, and if she's here, quite often the white dot, if she's marked, will be quite apparent on the angle that you look down. Quite often you'll find a queen by looking down on that next frame. If you don't see her there, then you go back to the frame in your hand and have a look. Stay one step ahead of yourself. Okay, placing frames back in. I've now got to a point where my brood frame carriers on this side are full, and I've got 3 over here. So it's time for me to start putting frames back inside the brood super, ready to put the hive back together. So as I go through, I'll look, and if I see eggs or young larvae, I will simply place them in the middle. That'll then free up my frames to examine. This one here is more of sealed brood and semi-sealed larvae, so I can put that one a little bit further out. That one there's quite a lot of sealed brood, so I'll place it on the outside. And if you're going to lift up 4 frames, you want to leave positions 2 and 3 available for your new frames. But that's described more in the actual brood lift process. Now to free it up completely, this one here, I'll also put towards the outside. And that then frees up my brood frame carriers to examine the last 3 frames for any cells of interest. So that may be disease, how much larvae I've got capped, how many eggs she's laying, whether it's clogged with pollen, and so forth. Now that one there is completely laid up. I can see all the larva hatchlings there, and lots of bees doing their job. I'll place that one right in the middle, back where it was. Of course, whenever I'm going through any brood chamber, I'm always looking for signs of disease, and most signs of disease that are quite problematic are apparent in capped larvae or sealed brood. Okay? During the pupae stage is usually when they die of American foul brood disease and so forth. So I always have a close look and make sure that my cappings are always concave, there's no sunken cappings, and there's no pinholes. We go through that more in detail in disease checks. But remember, a full disease check is only when you actually shake off every bee off every frame and check for disease. So in this circumstance, we are looking out for disease, but I wouldn't classify what I'm doing here as a full disease check. You've got to be able to keep your finger on that pulse, as Brother Adam would say. You must make sure that when you do a full disease check, you shake every bee off every frame. So I want to remove from the brood super, and 3 spaces for the frames to go in. So as this brood super belongs to a triple honey hive, we simply then place the excluder on, and then we put our other 2 supers back on top. You'll notice this video, we worked the brood super 10 frames, and if you didn't have 2 honey supers on top, you'd notice there was no honey in the brood super. If this was a single hive, you have to have honey down there for them to survive. But because we've got these 2 supers above, we're able to hold a full 10 frames of brood, eggs and larvae downstairs, which enables a strong production hive for honey.